again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard.
Toughness of the ACC. And it's a clash with character and quality people as well as talent. Those guys have so much pride.
And I have to be better in every aspect of my game.
This is iHeartSEC
with Joe Bombo.
We need more dogs.
iHeartSEC. I'm your host, Joe Bombo. And we're just a couple days away from kickoff. I know everyone's excited. I know I'm excited. And we talked a couple of days ago about some of the games that we like to put on the bench. You know, having that focus on that LSU game and Clemson being the main focus. But then beneath the surface, there's a lot of ACC and SEC matchups that are quite intriguing and have a lot of storylines. And joining us today is a veteran sportscaster that hosts his own podcast, Wake Up Call, Dan Tortor, the voice of Syracuse, very connected, over 20 years of experience, and I'd love to welcome him, a good friend of mine, to the podcast. Dan, thank you for joining us, iHeartSEC show, and contributing today, buddy.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. Happy to have crossed paths with you. You know, a little divine intervention there from God, and got to spend some time with you at ACC kickoff, and now get to have an opportunity to speak on what's coming up here. I can't believe it's football season, but I was watching a game that was being played in Hawaii a little while ago here, and I was like, all right, I guess we're in it. So I'm happy.
We're here, man.
Yeah,
we're here. You know, and before you know it, you do all your research, and you're like, okay, you have a couple weeks out, and then next thing you know, you have a couple days out, and all the research probably isn't wrapped up like you like for it to be. So, you know, we're spinning our wheels on these last days and looking at some of these games. If you could, before, I know that they can find you at dt.com, where most of your stuff and your work is posted. He's also has his own YouTube channel, Wake Up Call DT. I was looking for you on Twitter, so if you could just give the people your Twitter before we get into this first game today.
Yeah. So the website, like you said, wakeupcalldt.com. YouTube is at wakeupcalldt. And you can also find me on X, the former Twitter, at CallDT, Instagram at wakeupcall_DT, and Facebook at wakeupcalldt.
And then you can also find him down in Atlanta, Georgia all weekend. Like I said, where the players play. And they'll dang sure be playing this weekend when Virginia Tech takes on South Carolina Gamecocks. I see this as a very intriguing matchup. Of course, you have the Beamer storyline, but we won't focus on that. But when I look at this matchup, Dan, I see a Virginia Tech team that isn't going to let anything come easy. You know, they're a very veteran team for the most part. Yeah, they did lose a couple guys to the draft, but for the most part, some of their key guys will be returning, going up against a South Carolina team that we're looking to see if they are who they are, or if last year was just one of those years that you catch every once in a while in college football. What is your analysis on this game so far from the Virginia Tech end and on the Gamecock end?
Yeah, I mean, I think on the Virginia Tech side of things, you know, first and foremost, I'm really happy that they made a decision in Brent Pry to bring in my guy Philip Montgomery. And you know, Philip is somebody that I've known for many years. Had the opportunity to cross paths with him when he was the head coach at Tulsa. And, you know, for him to be there and running their offense as the new offensive coordinator, I think this is great. I think it's a great opportunity for Drones and the crew to get things going here for Virginia Tech. You know, Virginia Tech is not a slouch. It's not a team to overlook. And, you know, I love these first matchups of the season because you never know what's going to happen. And some teams haven't caught their stride. In the world we live in the transfer portal now, there are so many teams that are feeling that newness, right? And pretty much every team is new in some respects every single year. But for Drones, what I look forward to with this dual threat quarterback is that he was banged up last year. Now we get to see him in this game and what can he bring to the table? How versatile is he going to be? How healthy does he feel? And what are we going to do with the weapons? Because their offensive line is totally retooled here. They got to put a new offensive line to protect him. So I don't like that side of things unless this is an upgrade, right? And we don't know what an offensive line, when it's gone through so many changes, is going to bring to the table until we get to see them together. And so, how will they respond to a South Carolina team that was strong last year, that did a lot of good things last year, that if they had not tripped themselves up a few times, could have been a team to make a case for themselves in getting into the college football playoff? I mean, they were playing spoiler last year, and they very well, if they had been on the right side of some things here, would have been in a better position. They ended the regular season last year with 6 straight victories, including defeating Oklahoma, a 10-ranked team, Texas A&M, Vanderbilt, 23rd ranked Missouri, and then they defeated a 12th ranked Clemson at the time in that rivalry game. Their quarterback, Lenora Sellers, this is an interesting thing. And the fact that their game is going to be played on Sunday, August 31st, at the Aflac kickoff game doubleheader. On Saturday, August 30th, Syracuse plays Tennessee. Who did Syracuse have as a commit a few years ago? Lenora Sellers, who came in the 11th hour to take their hometown quarterback and leave him there with the hometown and not have him go up north? The South Carolina Gamecocks. So Lenoris, being a nationally known quarterback, a quarterback getting good NIL money right now, he's on the other side of this thing. So Drones versus Sellers, I really, really like this matchup. I think South Carolina, coming off of the success that they had last year, coming off the momentum, and knowing that their quarterback has stayed in Lenora Sellers, I'm excited to see what this can be for South Carolina. They said that, allegedly, maybe some people were looking to poach him from the Gamecocks, but he decided to stick around with South Carolina. So I think being one of the few teams in the top 25 that has a quarterback returning, keep in mind the nation's top 10 ranked teams in the AP and the coaches poll going into this season, 8 of the top 10 have a new quarterback. Only 2 of the top 10 ranked teams this season going into college football have a returning starting quarterback. And just outside of that top 10, I should say, Lenora Sellers being one of those guys that's coming back. So I think Drones versus Sellers is a really cool matchup. I think Virginia Tech can be sneaky this year, but I think South Carolina is going to come into this season reminding people that it was not a fluke and they weren't just trying to play spoiler. They're trying to take care of themselves. So I really like this matchup, and I think South Carolina is going to be dangerous this year.
Yeah, and that's the interesting point that you bring up about the quarterbacks and how there seems to have not been that many returning quarterbacks this year. That's something that I pointed out a couple of weeks ago, and how a lot of things they have, these top teams like Alabama, Ohio State, Texas, all these teams are projected to win a national championship, and all these teams are coming in with quarterbacks that aren't proven. So we really don't know what we're getting. It's more of a prediction or projection of what we should expect from the year. And I don't know if that's always a safe bet to go on, And then when you look at this game, you have guys of Drones and Sellers, Drone being one of the more experienced quarterbacks in the nation, coming back, I believe, this is his 3rd year back at Virginia Tech. So he's had season. He's been through the ups and downs. And it's funny how a lot of teams, and even when we were at ACC Media Days, a lot of voters didn't even have him as 1st, 2nd, or 3rd team as far as a quarterback. So they got a lot to prove going into this year.
Yeah, I think Virginia Tech is one of those teams that is overlooked. I mean, when Frank Beamer was there was respect there. But I think now, I like Brent Pry. I like what he does as a coach. I like the attitude that he takes. And I like who he's, like I said, I like who he's brought in. And I think having Philip Montgomery there to run the offense is awesome. So, I mean, be underlooked, be undervalued. The Hokies are still going to be a tough out for teams this year. And, they're starting the season up against South Carolina, and then they're going to play Vanderbilt. I mean, they have 2 SEC schools just to kick off the season. They will play Old Dominion, they will play Wofford, and then they get into ACC play, and we'll see them go to NC State, Then they got Wake at Georgia Tech, which I think is going to be a really good game for Brent Pry and Brent Key going up against each other. Then Cal, then Louisville, then at Florida State. We'll see where Florida State is at that point in the season. And then Miami at home, and then they'll have that rivalry game at Virginia to round out the season on November 29th, right after Thanksgiving. So, I see a lot of moments here for Virginia Tech where they could play spoiler again. And I don't know if they're necessarily there to get over the hump of things, but I do think that, when you look at what this team can be and the coach that they have and the way that they've gone about it, I think the culture is probably in a good place right now with the Hokies. And as much as I lean on South Carolina in this game, I don't necessarily think that Virginia Tech, whatever happens in this game, is out of it. I just think that, you got a buzzsaw in week number 1. I think South Carolina can open this game up, and this game could get ugly. I'm hoping there's close at certain points here, but honestly, Joe, I think this is a game where 24-10, 30-10. I think Lenora Sellers is going to let people know, whatever you think of me, you haven't seen anything yet.
Well, they're definitely going to need to do that, and I believe they'll need to show domination, especially if they want to compete within an SEC. One of the things I feel like is going to be one of the biggest storylines is Kelvin Gilliam, who's going to be leading this defensive line, and if they're able to get pressure on Lenore Sellers, because one thing that stands out like a sore thumb about his game is the turnovers. They will need to force turnovers, and the best way to do that is to get pressure in the pocket. If they're able to get pressure in the pocket, this could be a totally different game. If Nick Harbor isn't catching the ball clean, because that's supposed to be their breakout star this year, this could be a totally different game. So if they're able to, in a sense, muck it up and make this more of a dirty game, then we can get that score a little bit closer. But if not, and Lenore Sellers is able to play from a clean pocket, no pressure, then I could definitely see that 31-10 score that you're throwing out there definitely coming into fruition.
Yeah, and I think the big thing here is to look at Virginia Tech, speaking on their defense up against South Carolina's offense. Their turnover margin last year was +8. So, Virginia Tech being in the plus side of things, +8 on their side at the end of the season. And, per game offensively, they averaged more yards than they gave up. So that's something else to look to. And, as far as what they allowed just shy of 23 points a game. They allowed 363 total yards a game, about a little over 200 passing yards, and then 147.1 rushing yards per game. So their defense does have a lot to bring to the table here. And when we look at returning starters, you mentioned Kelvin Gilliam Jr., but also Caleb Woodson and Jaden Keller. Those guys coming back at the linebacker position, if they can keep that turnover margin in their favor, they can pressure Lenora Sellers, and they can continue this run of saying to their offense, hey, we're going to keep them below what you did last year. Now with a healthy Drones, can you give us a little bit more? Can we get over the hump? Because like I said, 24-10 is potentially what I was looking at, and they were allowing about 23 points a game last year. So that would be right around their mark. But can the offense kick it into high gear? And can we see an offense, you talk about protecting Sellers. Can we see a Virginia Tech team that can protect Drones having a bunch of new guys working as far as starters working together here? When you look up and down this line, there's no returning starter. And then besides Drones and their tight end, Gosnell, they don't have returners at wide receiver. They don't have a returner at running back, because keep in mind, Tootin is now a Jacksonville Jaguar. So there's a lot of question marks for Virginia Tech. As good as this defense, can potentially be, is this offense going to be able to click? Did they do enough in the fall to have the relationships and to solidify that they can move forward in this thing together? With so much newness in sports, Virginia Tech is no stranger to the fact that a lot of the guys you see out there are not the guys that you were seeing lead last year. So how well can they gel, and can they do it with the pressure of South Carolina in week 1?
And I definitely agree with you. And this is the thing. That's why I love these conversations, because while we're dropping these Jews and we have a guy that's well-known like DT, and he always informed, Believe me, I learned from ACC media. They always had a question for everybody. But while well-informed guys are dropping this knowledge, you hear little things. And the first thing that clicked in my head before we go into the next game is if you're interested in this game, you might want to be looking towards the under. Let's go into the next game, and we'll keep this one short because everyone beats these games down like a dead horse. And that is going to be Clemson LSU, one of the supreme matchups that will be taking place this weekend. When you hear Clemson LSU, what are some of your first thoughts?
Man, I think it's Brian Kelly calling it Death Valley Jr. I was like, what? Why is he trying to get smoked so early on this season? So I mean, I took offense to it. I'm not born in South Carolina. I mean, one of my brothers is from there, but like, I just genuinely don't know why he would make that decision. I mean, you want to give locker room material to Dabo Sweeney in my opinion, very non. I don't want to say uneducated. I want to say just a bad choice. And so I definitely don't think that that was the right move to make. So first thing that comes to mind for that is here you are calling out Clemson and calling it Death Valley Junior. And this is how you want to start off your season. I mean, Brian Kelly, keep in mind what he did at Notre Dame. There were years where they were thinking, should they let this guy go? And then he ended up jumping ship and going to LSU. And yeah, there's been some good moments at LSU, but nothing to call out Clemson. You're going to Clemson. And get this, folks, with tickets for some of these games this Saturday being as low as $10, 20 something bucks, 30 something bucks, guess how much the lowest price ticket for LSU at Clemson is? $302. So obviously they heard you, Brian, and he wants to be Death Valley. There's three Death Valleys. There's a Death Valley, I think, in California. There's a Death Valley of LSU in Baton Rouge, and there's the Death Valley of Clemson in South Carolina. So which one is the true Death Valley? I guess we're going to find out in this game. But I don't know why he would ask for this smoke this early on. And Cade Klubnik, I got to say this, for a guy in Jordan Travis who went up to ACC kickoff, stood at the podium just a short time ago, and he had made a statement and said, hey, being the Florida State quarterback, people love me now, but they were booing me. I know that these people were booing me for the last couple of years. I feel the same way about Cade Klubnik. It was like, how could you go from Trevor Lawrence to this guy? How could you, Trevor Lawrence, he worked, DJ didn't. Now you got Cade. And for those first couple of years, it was disrespect. It was silence. It was, is he even worthy of being a Clemson quarterback? And now he's the preseason player of the year in the ACC, is voted to by the media. And I'm not surprised at all. And I called that thing coming. So, Cade Klubnik, he, to me, in his brain, probably has a lot to prove to himself. I'm sure he has not scratched the surface on who he believes he can be. And the worst thing that Brian Kelly could do is tell Dabo, Cade, that Clemson defense, hey, guess what? You're our little brother, essentially. So what do I think about this game, Joe? I think that Brian Kelly just asked for his team to get smacked around the yard a little bit.
Well, he didn't only just ask for his team to get smacked around our yard. He asked for his name to be put up on the chopping block as one of the first coaches to get fired because, I strongly believe you don't come into this season after losing 3 straight openers and then drop another 4th to ACC team in Clemson. Yeah, it is Clemson, but to come in the 4th year and lose this game after you made it so much of an importance to win, especially at media day, speaking up and saying this is a must-win game. And if you go out there and even if you don't get your doors blown off and you lose this game, the questions are coming. Everyone's ready to jump on this because this is the year for LSU. So coming out and getting behind the 8 ball and losing your first game of the season, making it 0-4 is not going to help his story for the rest of this year, just to say the least.
No, I definitely feel like you come into this game quietly. You come into this game prepared, and you come into this game respecting and I don't want to say he doesn't respect his opponent. I don't feel like Clemson needs anything because I genuinely think Clemson is a force Their bad years, according to some people, is 10-3. It's a bad year if they don't make it to the college football playoff. People said everybody in the first round of the college football playoff last year got blown out. Apparently, they didn't watch the Clemson Texas game because that was a game down the stretch with a
Yeah.
few minutes to go. That was a very real matchup, and Clemson was playing that game on the road. So I think that Dabo, to the people that think he was gone, he's back. To the people that don't think he ever left, he's not, he hasn't gone anywhere. But Dabo does not need you to disrespect him. He doesn't need outside to give him energy. His energy comes from within. His energy comes from the Lord. So to me, he doesn't need any locker room material, but you gave it to him and you gave it to his players. And before any of that happened, I firmly believe that Clemson will remind America this year who they are. And I don't think people are going to like it, but I think Death Valley's going to love it.
I can't disagree with that. And hey, we're going to take a break for a second. I'm here with the Wake Up Call. Dan Tortor, you can find him on YouTube. You can also find him on Twitter. The guy's everywhere, to be honest with you. And he's definitely going to be in Atlanta, Georgia for 2 ACC SEC games. Syracuse, Tennessee is the next game we'll be talking about when we come back. And this guy knows a lot about Syracuse. So I'm looking to hear what he has to say about that Fran Brown in his second year at Syracuse coming up next.
Just tell me what you think about the new bill that was passed in California about players getting paid and having the right to get their own.
Man, I'm from poverty, so I obviously gonna side with that because I know I needed money. I know I was in high school without having nothing, not be able to get new cleats and stuff, and I'm the most popular dude where I was at. So, I'm with it, what I'm saying? Let them young dudes make their bread.
Is there anything you can think about when you was in college that you're like, man, I wish, like, the times that you went on that you're like, man, this ain't right, I need to...
I wouldn't really worry about that, you know what I'm saying? I was used to being poor, you hear me? I was used to not having no nothing, so I was just happy to be, away from the neighborhood that I was in. So I was just excited to be in college, I really wasn't worrying about nothing, getting paid for nothing. I just wanted to, be away, so it paid off real talk.
Syracuse and Tennessee. This is an intriguing matchup, Dan. And there's so many different layers to that. One, can Syracuse hit the ground running and continue their momentum from last year? And two, is Tennessee taking a step back, or are they going to be able to make this transition seamless with Joey Aguilar at quarterback? When you hear those two questions, which one do you think more unlikely are able to happen this year?
Yeah, listen, Tennessee, again, like the other schools we talked about, and Syracuse, they got a new quarterback. Joey Aguilar is somebody who comes over to them, having had some time at App State, went out to UCLA, but really nothing there to speak on. And here he is. And so being the Tennessee guy and Nico Iamaleava, who's no longer there, if this was Nico versus Kyle McCord, you could see this crazy show being put on. And I'm not saying that these other guys can't do it, but if I was watching Nico versus Kyle and that's was going to be this, this game here, we're talking about a crazy high octane quarterback v quarterback. Who's going to throw an interception? Who's going to make a mistake in a game where two guys could have 300-400 yards passing, multiple touchdowns apiece? Now it's how does Joey assimilate into Tennessee? How does Steve assimilate into Syracuse with Steve Angeli being the quarterback there? So, if I'm Nico, I got a couple questions. One, you just started college. You made it to the college football playoff as an at-large bid in the SEC. Where are you going? Why did you leave? And if it was, let's just for argument's sake, because I don't know him personally, let's say he says, well, I want to make more money. I'm making $2 million here in Tennessee. I want to make more. You went to the state that taxes you for being alive, waking up, breathing. There are taxes in California I didn't even know existed. So you go to California, you leave a place with no state tax, Tennessee. You go to California that's got a tax on a tax on a tax that taxes you for being taxed. And now you're making less money than you were making in Tennessee, which is a perfect example of why, children, you should stay in school. A perfect example of why the student and student athlete still matters, because if Nico was doing basic math, it makes more sense to be in the SEC to make it to the college football playoff. It makes more sense to be on a team that made it so early on in your career to go back to that team, and you're making more money, even if it looks like it's not as much as what you're getting offered to go out to California. So, Nico, you are an example to the world in a good way that you should take your liberal arts courses and you should care about being a student and not just an athlete in college. I don't think this was the right decision, in my opinion, because you're the quarterback and you're in the SEC and you're not getting taxed as much. So do I think that Tennessee can make it back to the college football playoff? Maybe. Lord knows the SEC is going to get multiple spots in the college football playoff. There's 12 spots in the college football playoff. 5 of those might be for the SEC. So Joey Aguilar, he's got a chance. He's been on the team that spoils you, App State, but he hasn't been on the team that's been the favorite. Well, coming into this game, Syracuse is the underdog. Tennessee is the favorite, according to America. Who do I think is going to win this game? We'll talk about that when you ask me to talk about that. But
I know we're going straight into that because this is a 2-touchdown lead. They got Syracuse 2-touchdown underdogs, and when I look at this Tennessee team, I see a wide receiver room that is weaker, an offensive line that is unproven, star cornerback in Jamar McCoy who isn't going to be there, another offensive and defensive talent in Boo Carter who's up in the air if he's going to get full playing time. I see a new quarterback. I see a lot of uncertainties. I see a team that might be in a culture crisis because as you're starting to see guys buck the trend of what was before.
yeah,
And I see a team in Syracuse who's looking to establish their culture. They didn't go with the big name or the guy that everyone would assume coming from the SEC would get the starting job in Ricky Council. They didn't decide to pay a Trevor Pena $2 million. I mean, the same situation that's going on with Tennessee in a sense. If you think about it, both teams came in Syracuse going in the offseason and Tennessee going into the spring with guys that wanted to get paid more. They both stood firm and said those guys can kick rocks. Now we're going to see which program is going to stand stronger after the wake of that. And me personally, I feel like Tennessee might be into a stale part of the season or stale part of the program time. So that's my assessment of what we're going to see. And 14 points is a lot. Let's lean on you with the Syracuse expertise.
Well, I mean, Syracuse for me, there's a lot of thoughts. And I had the opportunity to speak with quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, tight end, O-line, D-line, linebacker, DB, specialist, punter, kicker, those that might be returning the ball, position coaches, obviously Fran, and all the coordinators. So having a lot of time with these guys and how Fran's run in practice, I know that the world underestimates Syracuse. I know that the 2-touchdown thing, I think, is disrespectful for this game.
Yeah.
I think this game is going to be close. If I was a betting man, I'd have some fun with Vegas. And Ricky Collins Jr., as much as he comes in from LSU, minimal playing time, right? Steve Angeli, neither one of them has been a starter, but Steve Angeli came into a college football playoff game in a high-octane situation against Penn State in a game that was won by a field goal, 27-24, and he went 6 for 7 in his time in that game. So they both don't have a lot of experience, but Steve Angeli came in at a time where the experience that he does have speaks volumes. Now, it's a small window into him. It's a bigger window than Ricky, but it's a small window into both of these guys. Now, I asked Fran, because I knew he was going to be asked a million questions about the quarterback situation. I said to him something that I consider different. I said, what are the intangibles? Okay, obviously both of these guys can throw and this, that, and whatever, but what are the intangibles? And he said, Steve makes a relationship with everybody on the team. He bonded with every single person on the team. That was something he paid attention to, that relationship. Not saying that Ricky didn't, but it stuck out with him with Steve that he wanted to be connected to every single person on the team. Now, Joey, new to Tennessee. Steve, new to Syracuse. One of these quarterbacks is going to get a victory. One of these quarterbacks is going to look like it was the right decision in week 1. I believe, not because I'm from here and not because I've covered them the entire 21 plus years that I've broadcasted, or that I was the first self-sustaining, self-creating, non-pre-existing internet company that they gave a credential to make an example out of and see for men's basketball and football. Are we going to do this at Syracuse back when they weren't letting internet companies in? And I don't consider myself an internet company. We use the internet, but we are very much hand to hand with people in the community all the time. I don't know what you would call my company outside of the fact is we dare to be different. And I put God first. I think everyone should. Covering this team and seeing what they have a bigger offensive line than they've had the entire time that I've been back in Syracuse. 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", 3 this, 3 that, 400 plus in Byron, Washington. Austin Collins coming from Louisville, stepping out. Matt Hahn coming from my alma mater of Christian Brothers Academy down the road from Syracuse University. And he is being talked about, guard, center. You got big-bodied guys that are unlike anything that Syracuse had showcased. Now, can those big bodies be agile? Are their hands good, feet good, technique good? We'll see. But it's something they didn't have before. On the other side of it, I think David Reese quite arguably could be a terror. He's in his 8th season of eligibility, wearing number 8 for that reason. Syracuse has questions. Tennessee has questions. I respect Josh Heupel. I've covered Josh Heupel, and I was around him when he spent his 2 years at UCF, when he wasn't getting respect against SEC teams. And now he's an SEC coach. I've been around Fran Brown a lot. I think this is a great matchup. I think it's a perfect way to start the season for where Tennessee is at and where Syracuse is at. And again, not because I'm from here, but because of what I'm looking at. I think this game is going to feature a turnover or two. I'm seeing fumble recovery. I'm seeing Syracuse gets it. There's also a guy that's a running back for Syracuse, also a kick return, punt return guy. You give him space, he will leave you in his tracks. Malachi James, watch him, punt return, kick return in this game. Watch the turnovers or turnover in this game that goes on the side of Syracuse. I'm leaning on Syracuse to win this game. I think Syracuse is going to edge out Tennessee. No one's going to blow anybody out in this game. I think it's going to be Syracuse, and it's going to be a play or two that separates. And I think that Steve Angeli and this Orange team is going to start out 1-0, and they're going to tell the world, yeah, we got one of the toughest or the toughest schedule in America. Bring it.
You know what? If I could reach my book for season totals and such, I think I have Tennessee down as an L for this game. But I want to bring up one more question about something Fran Brown said over the summer. He said that with my secondary, we have to not get beat over the top. And I feel like you might ask that question. But he said, with my secondary, we can't get beat over the top. We know a Tennessee team who leans on looking to beat you over the top.
Yeah.
They have Aguilar, who's a gunslinger, has the gunslinger mentality. So that turnover aspect you brought into the equation definitely plays a factor because he has been known to turn the ball over.
Yeah.
What is it going to take for Syracuse not to get beat over the top? And what is it going to take for Tennessee to be able to beat Syracuse over the top?
Well, I think, and I appreciate the question. I think looking at Syracuse's defensive backs, you got a guy in Barry Buxton the third that was at the ACC kickoff, and he went from third string to first string. So what is Barry going to look like? I think Deuce Chestnut, who's been a corner and a safety, what will he truly be to this team this time around? And then you got a 17-year-old kid, true freshman, Demetrius Samuel Jr., a two-way player who's a starting corner on the team right now. So what does Syracuse do to not get beat over the top? You got to scheme better. E-Rob's got to make good decisions as the D coordinator. You got to know your personnel. You got to play to your strengths. Now, they play a defense that's got 5 in the back. So you got that roving guy. You got the 2 safeties. You got your 2 corners. You're playing 4 up front, 2 linebackers inside. I think with Syracuse this season, the question becomes, who are going to be those linebackers? Who is going to step up there? And who can be a guy that can be that jack of all trades like Justin Barron has been for so long and like he was last year when Marlowe Wax went down with an injury? So there's question marks all throughout Syracuse's defense. But how do these guys not get beat over the top? They're going to have to keep up with them. Demetrius Samuel. Okay, so when you talk about speed and then you look at Deuce, what can they do? I mean, this is a big question. Syracuse, a few years back, defensive back was the worst position for them on the field. By far, easily the worst position. Then you got Garrett Williams. You got Ifeatu Melifonwu. You got Andre Sisco. You had all these guys come through that are now playing in the NFL. Now it's who's the next man up? Can Samuel, with his raw talent, step into college football and immediately be effective? They're going to test him. Aguilar's going to test him. And the question, and I love that you brought it up, is can Syracuse's defensive back unit, will they know where they need to be, have the right spacing, know when to give them a little, know when to be right up on them, and will they stay with them speed-wise, and will they keep them in front of them is going to be a big question. If they don't, it's going to be a long day. If they do, then there's going to be a victory. But there's going to be some young guys tested and some guys that haven't been starters tested for Syracuse. And this game, I'm going to be paying very, very close full watch on how this defensive back unit looks by and large throughout and where Deuce really is this time around, because he's played in different places and he was an island. And he took care of that when he was a corner. At safety, was that the right position for him? We'll see. We'll see. But I think it's a great question, and I think Syracuse's defensive backs are going to have to be ready for this. The last thing you want is to give Aguilar the opportunity to drop, and the defensive line is going to have obviously have an effect of this with Tank Wilson and David Reese and the crew, is getting that pressure and getting it quickly so that those DBs are not left out in the field trying to chase after a guy. The longer they have to be on a guy, the better it's going to be for Joey or any quarterback that can hit a receiver in stride. So, I mean, I think that defensive line, when you ask me the question about the defensive backs, my response to you is that D-line is going to have to approach the bench really quickly and give these guys little time.
Well, that's a perfect storm right there because, like I said earlier, you have an inexperienced offensive line in Tennessee looking to patch up some spots. And so it will give that defensive edge. So I'm pretty sure that defense are more veteran-laden than the Tennessee's offensive line. So that's definitely going to play a key factor. And the funny thing, before we go on to the next game, and I thought about is Fran was a defensive back coach. Fran played defensive back. So if he has his hands on anything, it will be that secondary. So I trust him to make sure that he's going to put the right guys in a position and he's going to develop those guys to be players that possibly could play on Sunday. So that's going to definitely be the interesting part in the storyline of this game. I guess if we're going to have any doubts, you might want to be looking at points being put up on the board and the team that have the ball last and the team that's able to put the ball in those lines consistently without turning the ball over.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you got to protect the ball, of course. And like I said, I think there could be a turnover or two that decides this game and whose side is going to be on. I'm leaning that it's going to be on Syracuse's side, potentially a fumble recovery. And, we'll see what happens in that respect. But for right now, for me, there are so many question marks. And with Tennessee and Syracuse both having them, I think it's a good time for them to play each other because it is kind of open season here of who's going to get it together quicker. And like I said, I'm leaning on Syracuse a little bit more in this game. But if this was Nico versus Kyle, man, I'd be talking about a game that's going to be 40 something, 45, 42 or something
40,
like that.
50. I'm like 40. It's like 90 points being put up if that's the case. I'm here with Dan Tortora. Also, you can check him out at DT.com and on X at CallDT. And before we wrap it up, Dan, let's touch on this of Alabama-Florida State game. And I consider this game being Castellanos versus the world now, especially versus the South after his statements he made. Everyone's been harping on him. This is a team that's looking to bounce back. Both of these teams are looking to prove themselves after missing out on the college football playoffs and being snubbed. This is going to be an interesting year for Florida State. And this is going to be an interesting game for both teams and how they approach it and how they come out looking after this week one matchup.
Yeah. I think, listen, I'm never for giving anybody locker room material ever. And in a world back in the day, somebody said something to somebody who said something to somebody who wrote it on a piece of paper and stuck it on the wall. Now it's instantaneous. Now it's on X, it's on Facebook, it's on TikTok, it's on Snapchat, it's on YouTube, and so on as Instagram. It's everywhere if you say something. Castellanos, they asked him, like, what do you think about your statement? And he doubled down. He was like, hey, like, obviously we respect our opponent, but, who am I as a quarterback if I'm sitting here saying, like, I don't think we can do it? So, do I knock him for saying it? No. Should he have said it out loud to the world? Probably not. Now, Alabama, Florida State, and this is kind of ironic here. So the kickoff game, the Aflac kickoff game that used to be the Chick-fil-A kickoff game was Alabama, Florida years ago. And I was at that game in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So the fact that we have Alabama, Florida State here again, as we had Alabama, Florida State in the kickoff game before, and we're talking about the kickoff games, it's just kind of funny how this all links together as we have Alabama, Florida State one more time. In that game, though, the Florida State quarterback got injured, went down in that game. So now to see Alabama and Florida State once again, this game's going to be in Tallahassee, though. I'm excited to see it. Alabama's got a lot to prove. This is year number 2 with Kalen DeBoer as the head coach. And, for Mike Norvell, I always say that he's coached whatever minus a half a year because I think they only played like 5 games during COVID. So what do I think of this game? I would have liked Tommy Castellanos to not have said that publicly. I think Alabama's going to win this game. I do think that Florida State is going to be a force to be reckoned with this year. I don't like what was said by Brian Kelly about Clemson. In the same vein, I don't like what Tommy Castellanos had to say before this game against Alabama. I don't think they need the help. Alabama is ranked in the top 10, because they always are. And we'll see what they can do here. I think Alabama's going to have a better season. I think Clemson's going to have a better season. I think this season might have some semblance to years past that we have seen where Alabama and Clemson are in the conversation for the college football playoff. I lean on Alabama in this one. I think Florida State's got to work out some kinks. I know they brought in some wide receivers. Obviously, they brought in their quarterback in Castellanos. They brought in a guy's name that I can't believe is true, but Squirrel White
Oh
And
yeah,
so,
from Tennessee.
yeah, so seeing that Florida State has a lot to kind of work through, not that Alabama doesn't have change, that everybody has some change. I think if this was Alabama, Florida State week 4, week 5, I think it's more of a game. I think this game is all Crimson Tide rolling in to Tallahassee and rolling out with a victory.
Yeah, I'll definitely double down on that. I'll say that if you look across the board, Alabama, well, let me say Florida State has no favors on their side. Alabama has one of the deepest secondaries in the nation. Alabama's linebacking core is top 10 in the nation. The defensive line, which is always their strength, is top 3 in the nation. Their offensive line is number 1 in the nation. Their wide receiver core with Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard are top 5 in the nation. Their quarterback room is deep. Like, I think I just went down every position right there. This is not the team that you want to play week 1 when you're still trying to figure out the offense. This is not the team that you want to play. And let's notice this, that Alabama has been the team that in the past has struggled with running quarterbacks. That's what
Yeah.
Castellanos is. If he's able, he's going to have to use his feet because that defense is going to be bearing down on him. This isn't the same team of last year with DJ, and I don't expect them to look like the same team. I expect them to be able to get the ball down the field. But if they cannot get the ball down the field, and Squirrel White, who did play SEC football, so they have played against him at Tennessee. This is no surprise, his speed that he brings to the field. He's sort of a small receiver, so he's going to have to be able to get past guys like and some of those guys in the secondary. So when you look at everything across the board, Alabama has the advantages. It's going to be against the heart and want to of Florida State if they're going to compete in this game. Because if they don't come out ready for what Alabama has to offer, this 13 and a half points is going to seem like nothing, and they're going to buzz through this team so fast. So it's going to be interesting. I believe that Alabama has all the strengths, so I'm leaning towards Alabama, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely leaning on Alabama's side, and I think it's going to be mostly them. I think of all the games that we talked about here today, this will be the game that may be the most lopsided, and that is no disrespect to Mike Norvell or to Florida State. I just think Alabama coming in, something to prove, and they
It's
got
bad time.
yeah, it's bad timing, and they got locker room material that they don't need.
Yeah, that definitely doesn't help, man. Well, I appreciate you, man. You've been much help for me to understand this landscape in the first week. I'm jealous that you're going to be joined the next couple of days. Well, the whole weekend down in hot Atlanta, enjoying some football, man. I'm sure you're going to get a lot of good insight and a lot of good content. Make sure you guys go follow Dan on YouTube at the Wake Up Call. Make sure you follow him on X. This guy's consistently putting up content. He's consistently flooding my channel, and I'm always going to support him. And I appreciate you for taking time out to support me today, man.
Yeah, listen, it's my pleasure, and I believe in home and homes, so I'm here with you, and I will have you on Wake Up Call as well, and I look forward to the opportunity of having a discussion with you on that. But definitely appreciate you thinking of me and having me here for this talk. Excited to see it, and to make a note about the Athletic Kickoff game that Gary Stoken, the president of the Peach Bowl Inc., that oversees the Athletic Kickoff game and the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl and was an integral part of bringing the College Football Hall of Fame to Atlanta. I do want to take some words from him that because the College Football Playoff, based on seeding, now tells the Peach Bowl who they're going to have every single year, and they don't get to choose. They had ACC versus SEC. So the Aflac kickoff game at the beginning of the season is supposed to be just like a bowl game and have those types of matchups. And they wanted to stay true to the old Peach Bowl and have ACC SEC. So just so people know here, the ACC SEC Peach Bowl matchup is very much alive. They just found another way to bring it to life. So I want to thank the Peach Bowl for keeping the essence of that while also being inside of the college football playoff. And I think it's great, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do for next year.
I definitely agree. And that creates intriguing matchups, man, at the beginning of the year, each and every year. And just to add on to that, guys, make sure you check out Dan's channel because he did do a full-length interview with the gentleman he's just speaking of that's running the Peach Bowl. And he also has content on there with Scotty, the guy that runs the Cotton Bowl. So make sure you check him out. This guy's connected, and he has a lot of tentacles out in the college football world, and they're touching the right people. But, Dan, thank you for coming on. I know you got a busy week ahead of you. I'll be looking forward to talking to you soon. And once again, appreciate you joining the show. Make sure you follow him on X, on YouTube. Go ahead and give him your socials and say anything else before we close this out.
Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. worldwide at Eastern Time. And of course, you can find us on YouTube at Wake Up Call DT, Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, X at Call DT, and Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. If you forget any of that and you remember Wake Up Call, you could find everything in one place, including all of the live feeds to listen Monday through Friday by going to wakeupcalldt.com.
Keep your eyes locked on the channel because SEC never sleeps, and neither do we. As always, hit the follow button. While you're at it, tap subscribe and keep the conversation going on social medias at Bombo ENT Group. I'm your host, Joe Bombo, and this is iHeartSEC. Until next time, my friends.